All claims in the following episode made against BLMGNF, the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, are alleged and have not been corroborated by a United States court of law.
Topical and atypical. Unfiltered and independent. 100% authentic and intelligent.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. My cats took my cover of my microphone and turned it into a plaything. So that's why it looks so janky. Yeah. That's why it looks so janky, which if anybody's been following me for a long time, they know that that's driving me crazy. Yeah, it's driving me crazy. Let me tell you something about Vanessa. Vanessa be starting the show with a super. She's like, I'm just putting money in the offering plate when I walk in. Okay. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Good morning to everybody. We have a fabulous show today. We will be joined by some dope folks. We'll be joined by David Heath, who is an independent journalist who used to write for CNN and all the things. And then he was like, get me out of here. And now he is an independent journalist and he's an author as well. And I met him. I say met, but I mean, that's really kind of what kind of happens on the internet. I met him while I was on this Instagram thing post pro-Palestine, post October 7th, because he was one of the people that was like, posting things that were informative and that were letting people know like, this is not what you all think it is. So we have David Heath joining us for 60-second headlines. And we also have Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is an incredible activist, organizer. She was the VP running mate with Dr. Cornel West. She is also one of the main folks involved with the Black Lives Matter Grassroots movement. And so she will be here to clarify for us the difference between Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter Grassroots movement, which a lot of people may not know there's a difference. So really excited to have both of these people here. Also really excited that Ms. Latia noticed that I'm giving it to you today. Earrings, good blouse, light beat. We're getting everything this morning. You are. And I love that you noticed. I love it. I love it. Where's everybody joining us from? Where is everybody joining us from? Let me know where you are joining us from because I want to shout you out. And if you are joining us from Instagram, join us on YouTube. Come and migrate over to youtube.com, Amanda Seals TV, and join us, because that is where we really are, and you're missing the whole show. So come and join us. All right, we got New Orleans. We got Spelman College campus joining us in the building. We got Lakeland, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia. We got NYC, Midtown Manhattan. I know Risha's at her desk. We got Tampa, Florida, Lawrence, Kansas, Tejas. We got Berkeley, California, Stockholm, Sweden checking in. Actually, let me just say, I can count to 10 in Swedish. Y'all. Okay, let me know how I do, Dappa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me know. We also have, who do we else got joining? We got Reese Roberts joining from London. Thank you, Reese, for your question for our good sis, Nikki High, yesterday. If you missed yesterday's episode all about Altadena, you need to go check it out. We learned about Altadena, not just the past, but the present and what can be for the future. And we had a dope ass owner on the show. Octavia's Bookshelf is a bookstore in Altadena owned by Nikki High, who is now, I mean, she's already an activist, but she has a whole support system out of her bookstore right now. So make sure you check it out and see how you can come and help. We have Peru in the building. Wow! Oh my gosh, it be blowing my mind how we are international. Like we're multinational in the United States, Los Estados Unidos, and then we're international and we're multi-digital because we got Octavius joining us from Gaithersburg and made the switch to IG. We love you, Octavius, for following instructions. Alex is in bed in Minneapolis. We love for you for relaxing because rest is resilience. Asia, we got Tokyo, Japan. We got South Africa. Monique is in the office in Corson, California. Let me tell y'all, it just really be blowing my mind. It just really be blowing my mind. Like, this is my dream. This is my dream, to be able to have all these folks from all over the world, and we're coming together and we are we're sharing thoughts and ideas and understanding about things. And I hope that there's people in here that are showing up with one mindset and that are leaving with another, because that's really the goal. We got Gad Wavomba in Dubai. So we're also in the Middle East, which is really Asia, Africa, depending on what your point of view is. Pantara said she's in Japan at heart. You know what? We're going to take that. We're going to take that. So shout out to everybody who's joining us. If you're again on Instagram, come and migrate. And when you migrate over here, remember to subscribe. Okay? Remember to subscribe. It is imperative that you subscribe. You know, this is a show that I do out of my heart, out of my mind, and out of my pockets. And the way that it will continue to grow is by getting views and engagement. So after you watch the show, I'd love for you to come and leave a comment in the chat. In the comments, because that is how YouTube basically decides whether or not something is successful, based on people commenting. It's views and comments. So I would love for you all to come back and leave a comment. Actually, let me just go ahead and write that on there, because sometimes people need to see it in words, not just vocally. Come back and leave a comment. You feel me? Come back and leave a comment. And I need y'all to know, this show is kicking my butt. Let me just be clear. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I can't make plans to do other things. Don't ask me to do nothing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I can't. I can't. I don't have the bandwidth. When people would say I don't have the bandwidth, I'd be like, ugh, whatever. I get it. I don't have the bandwidth. Let me just tell you how it works. Okay. So around 7:00 the night before, I start planning the show. So I go through and I research, whether it's on Instagram or there's certain sites that I go through, like Axios, ProPublica, The Guardian, The Independent. Sometimes I'll look at like CNN and Washington Post just to see what like the mainstream media is saying about certain things. Al Jazeera. So I'll go through these different sites. On my Instagram, I always check out BT News. I always check out Sister Jones. I always check out So Informed. I always check out who else? St. Hoax, etc., just to see what they're talking about. And I always look at Blavity to see what the Gen Z Blacks are talking about. Shout out to my good sis Morgan DeBon over there. So I go through all of these sites and I start putting together, like, how do I want to talk about a topic? Because as you know from this show, I don't just talk about a topic. Like, I will encapsulate it. I try to put like 3 things in one so that we're getting the most bang for our buck, right? So that takes a certain level of time to synthesize. I can do it pretty quick, but I got to synthesize it. And then, of course, I got to come up with something fun and creative. So that also then takes the next step. So, for instance, yesterday, we did the Congress as 90s teen movies. And so, like, I had to source the Congress members, and then I had to source the films that characters that they look like. And then I had to go into Canva and then create the graphics. The day before, we did Mark Zuckerberg and the translations. So I had to first go through the video, translate it, but then I also had to edit the video so that I could put it up here to show as I'm translating. So I'm using literally every skill set I have. I've been watching Parks and Rec. That's where the literally is coming from. And Perkins. And then I have to write it all out. So I write it all out, which doesn't necessarily take like a crazy amount of time, but I'm just saying like these are the steps. Okay. So I write it all out. And then in the morning, and I do this all with a race for time to try to get to bed by 10:30. It hasn't happened yet, but that's the goal. Then in the morning, I get up and I come into the program and I drop in all of the banners. So I come in, I drop in all of the banners, and then we do the show. During the show, I throw up all the banners, all the music, everything is happening, by my like brain. And then at the end of the show, I have to download the audio and the video, post the audio to Patreon so people can get their ad-free listening on Patreon. Then I have to chop up clips for Instagram, for YouTube, for YouTube Shorts, and post them, etc. And the thing about it is that at no point in this process have I figured out where I could outsource. At no point. I'm like, where in here is there an outsource? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. It would mean that I have like a full-time producer who's watching and in real time writing the clips, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not there yet. But I just wanted to tell you that is what goes on. And then on Thursday, I get up and I do our bonus question segment. And then on Friday, I get up and I do things I learned this week. And those are just take me like an hour to do. But I spend the rest of the week really just continuing to look for stories and stuff to make the next week easier. And also working on working on Amanda Land exports. And I'm still finishing my book and also watching TV and doing nothing. Okay. Patricia says she's tired just listening to this. So I just want to shout out all of our independent creatives out there because I can absolutely tell you I am working so hard. But it feels great because it's what I want to do. It's and I want to also just take a moment to say that like this idea that working for yourself is the only way to work, don't believe that. Not everybody is cut out for that. Not everybody is equipped for that. And you can actually do really great work supporting somebody supporting somebody that works for themselves. And it doesn't mean that you are some type of like, I don't know, follower or minion or plebeian. Okay. I feel like that gets really misrepresented. And I don't want people to feel like they have to, everyone doesn't have to be the visionary. Visionaries need support. Okay. And a lot of people are not able to provide support. Let's be clear. Let me also say real quick that that's not true. So many people these days feel like they need to have their name on it to be acknowledged. Like so often it's like if you get support from a grant or support from a company or support from a person, etc., they have to have their name on it. Like I remember when I did my web series, Get Your Life, and I completely wrote, produced, starred in, directed. Well, I co-directed my show completely. Like there was no support provided to me. But in order for it to get really seen, I needed to connect it to a bigger platform. And so I brought it to Issa to put on her platform. She had Issa Rae Presents on YouTube. And so when they put it up on YouTube, all of the sites started saying, oh, Issa Rae has a new show. And none of them acknowledged me, even though I was the creator of the show. And I just saw Sally Struthers talking about how Norman Lear did that to Carol, what's his name? The guy who created Archie Bunker's character. And I'm not even shading Issa. The reason I bring up Norman Lear is because this is the way. Literally, like, this is the way. This is the way that the system works. It's that, you as the artist, like you create the thing and then you connect it to someone who has a bigger name. And then that name becomes the thing. And so often those folks, they don't acknowledge like, oh no, I'm just an executive producer. Like what I love about Chris Rock is that when Chris Rock was supporting people, I'm sure he still does, but when Chris Rock was supporting with with executive producing positions, he would leave his name out of it. He would leave his name out of it. And I just think it's really necessary to acknowledge that, like, there's a lot of us who are creating things, and you don't have to like put your name over the other person's name in order for you to still receive recognition. Okay. So there's that. That was just a random bonus rant. That was a random bonus rant for y'all. Okay. Want to remind you to go check me out on Patreon. If you want to be a next level supporter of the work that I'm doing, then you can support me at Patreon. Remember, I am no longer a part of the corporate cog. I don't have any like investors, etc. The grassroots, the people, you guys are the investors. Every dollar counts. Every $5 subscription on Patreon is a vote of confidence that the work I'm doing is valued and valuable. So thank you to all of my SEAL squad for joining us at Patreon. Also, want to remind you that you can add a super right here in YouTube, and you can add a super, which is basically a tip, so to speak. All right. At the end of the show, try your best to just replay the episode. I don't know. Instagram is really funny style because they're like, people only watched 40 minutes of your show. I'm like, God dang, that's really impressive. Shout out to my Moana cup. That is my mug for today. I'm drinking Kenyan coffee. Okay, I'm drinking Kenyan coffee. And again, we want to remind you to please subscribe. All right. So reminder that today, because I know some people were like, did I miss? And I'm going to start a ticker. I'm going to start putting a ticker at the bottom that tells you like what we're going to be talking about for the day. So that is something that I'm working on. Listen, I'm always trying to figure out ways to improve the show. And I'm always trying to figure out ways to improve the Amanda Seales universe. And one of those is we have the newsletter. So make sure to sign up at amandaseales.com to know about when we're going to be dropping new things at the Amanda Land Export Shop. This is the church announcements, by the way, if you haven't noticed. And right now we still have the Harriet pin available at the Amanda Land Export Shop. I know that usually I only put things available for a week, but it's been a time. So I say, you know what, folks have got a lot going on. So go ahead, go and get you a Harriet Tubman pistol pin. All right. Are we ready to start the show? We got to get into our word of the day. Let's get into our word of the day. The word of the day is susurrus. Susurrus. Not to be confused with sus. Okay? Not to be confused with sus. And let me just take a moment to shout out Lalia or Lalia for speaking the real right here. They swear you a crybaby desperate to be in the room. Ma'am, they swear. What's really happening is I be trying to get in the room to let folks know this is what be going on. This is what be going on. And they think I'm trying to be seen. It's like, no, I'm trying to help. Like, what? Shout out to people who got their pins. Oh my God, Kimberly got a pen. Mary got a pen. CJ got a pen. Lauren said, what's all that susurrus over there? Speak up if you want something. I love it. I love it. I love it. What's all that susurrus? Megan said, I heard susurrus coming from the other room. I think we have a ghost. Apparently, this is similar in Espanol. Someone said that this is in Espanol. Shout out to Meg Collier for leading the charge with who got a pen. Thank you, Meg. Why is it similar to Spanish? Someone let me know. Meg said, the susurrus of my sewing machine reminds me of the skills I bring to my community. I also love that Megan's picture is basically her as Rosie the Riveter. Am I right? I believe you are Rosie the Riveter. Miss Latia got a pen. Sinead got a pen. I love it. Y'all got your pens, okay? Talicia said she skipped 8 table invites and built her own table. That is correct. Pantara, the susurrus of this being the last week of our fake democracy has me mourning. Yes. Susurrus, S-U-S-U-R-R-U-S. It's a noun that, if you haven't gathered from context clues, means whispering, murmuring, or rustling. Whispering, murmuring, can I speak? Can I speak, Amanda? Whispering, murmuring, or rustling. Rolando. Hey, little mama, let me sussur us in your ear. You win. You win. Rolando wins. Why is that so funny to me? Hey, little mama, let me sussur us in your ear. That made my day. That made my day. Oh, that made my day. I love a good pop culture reference. Oh, Latinx Hero said susurro means whisper in Spanish. Look at that. And we just talked about Bad Bunny. Let me tell y'all, the Puerto Ricanos do not play about Bad Bunny. They're like, Amanda, Bad Bunny has been an international superstar. Bad Bunny has been a revolutionary in his música. Do not disrespect him. I said, you know what? You're right. Now, mind you, the context of what I was saying was that when I met him in 2018, he was not an international superstar. And now he is an international superstar. But that's my fault. That's my fault because I didn't represent my thought process as clearly as I could have. So respect. All right. That's our word of the day, y'all. That's our word of the day. Let me have a sip of my drink. Oh, man. People are asking where they can get the pins. You can get the pins at Amanda Land Exports. I'm going to throw it up right here. All right. So we're going to do a little critical thinking exercise. Are y'all ready for some critical thinking? We're going to do a little critical thinking exercise. So I came across this article that I thought was really interesting. And okay, David isn't in here yet. I came across this article that was really interesting because it talks about indigenous cultural burn as we are in the context of what's going on in the world right now, right? And there's burns that happen, listen, like wildfires happen all over the world, but the ones that are happening here in the United States, we talk about how so often it feels like this is happening and it could be avoided. So I want to read you this. I've summarized this article, how the indigenous practice of good fire can help our forests thrive. It's written by Robin Shalens. It was published April 26th, 2028 at UCLA. I want to read you this article, and I want you to give me some commentary when I'm done reading on what isn't being said in this article that you can combine with what you know of what's been going on in the past week and just any previous knowledge you have around natural resources, around fires, around climate change, around community, around indigenous peoples, etc. Because what we have to be doing is we always have to be continuing the thread of our intelligence, all right? Continuing the thread of information. You don't just read something and then put it in a drawer and then read this thing and put it in a drawer. You're connecting things. You're putting it in a pot. And the critical thinking is what stew you're able to make out of these ingredients coming together. Okay. Did I say 2028? It was written in 2022. It was written in 2022. Okay. A controlled burn of a forest, also known as a prescribed burn, is a planned fire that's used to manage forests and grasslands. Fire experts use controlled burns to mimic natural fires and restore the health of ecosystems. But this was after Native Americans, who had been stewards of the land, someone tell me what a steward is, stewards of the land, were outlawed from doing cultural burns for the same reason, but with a deeper understanding and intention. In 1850, California passed the Act for the Government and Protection of Indians, which outlawed intentional burning in the newly formed state. Tribes were forced off the lands that they had carefully been maintaining. Forests were extensively logged, then replanted in dense groves, creating the kind of closely packed forests that can fuel massive, uncontrolled wildfires. Honorable Ron W. Good, tribal chairman of the North Fork Mono Tribe, has been practicing what is known as cultural burning for nearly 30 years. Cultural burns are a form of land management passed down by indigenous tribes over thousands of years. It is called cultural burning not only because of its spiritual and cultural importance to indigenous communities, but because the burns are designed to cultivate the biodiverse, sustainable growth that makes landscapes more resilient. The big difference between prescribed burns and cultural burns are that agencies tend to focus on acreage and fuel reduction. Forestry technicians may prioritize large-scale pile burning, for example, then leave when it's done. In contrast, Honorable Ron W. Good says, we thrive on land, not survive. Indians didn't survive. We look at our grandchildren's grandchildren, 7 generations, basically 120 years down the road. That's where we look. So the decisions that we make and our practices that we do today need to affect generations down the road. Yosemite is in the process of welcoming a return to cultural fire under the oaks in the valley, Middleton Manning notes. Middleton Manning, who is one of the writers of this article, led in part by the National Park Service cultural ecologist Irene Vasquez, a UC Santa Cruz alum and Southern Sierra Miwok and Paiute tribal member. 3 million acres of land returned to tribes through Interior Department's land buyback program for tribal nations ended in December of last year. Following a decades-long campaign by Klamath tribes, including the Yuroks and Karuks, several dams were demolished last year, with the last coming down in late August, and after a century, salmon have returned to the lands of the Klamath tribes. So this tells us in a number of different ways how indigenous peoples' understanding of land is different than how government understanding of land is. Now, I would like to get from you all some of the things that you gleaned from this article. Felicia said, stewardship is the practice of managing and caring for the land and resources by indigenous communities. Correct. Rolando says, fire is good for the earth. It's like medicine. It purges and enriches the soil, making space for new, healthy growth. Lord Frankie the Cat adds, when you burn the land, the ash brings nutrients back to the soil. So let's hear from some folks that are putting together some thoughts from this. Adrian asks, I'm wondering how could we, if it was a different administration, use the cultural burn to prevent fires later this year? Is it too late? I mean, I don't think it necessarily is about whether it's too late, because even if it can't prevent it this year, I think just an action-based effort towards utilizing practices that were useful for centuries would already be a start in the right direction. The natives have spirit and soul, and our government has neither. Yes, this is something you can glean from this article, because our government is operating on perimeters and grid lines that they have drawn without any consideration for the actual people. Those grid lines and perimeters were drawn for the goal of making money, right? They were drawn for the goal of doing what you can to really just put more people in power and put more money in people's pockets. So there really isn't any reason why this can't continue to be done other than it's a different set of values. Luna adds, I am of the mind that this country should be run by a group of elder indigenous women. Yes. Yes. Taylor says, as an environmental scientist, I'm sure she's coming back with more. All right. So GK says, no, you're not. So we also have, hold on one second. Where is David? We also have some comments from folks. My girl, Melissa, we did gymnastics together. One of my favorite concepts I've learned from indigenous cultures is reciprocity with land and natural ecosystems. So one of the things that they mentioned in the article is that the fire officials will just do this and leave because they're not considering the land to be their responsibility. They're only considering the people their responsibility. So they're like, well, we'll just do this on the land and get back to the people. But it's like, no, you still have to cultivate the land. Maya said there's a great book by that. There's a great book that speaks about this. It's called Fresh Banana Leaves, Healing Indigenous Through Science. Healing the Indigenous Through Science. And I really feel like a lot of folks are waking up to the realities of indigenous people, not as people of the past, but people that need to be involved in the present. And so much of our education has been speaking of indigenous people as people of the past. I got in trouble. I talk about this on the Shay Shay show. I got in trouble because when my teacher said that Aborigines were Stone Age people, I raised my hand and was like, absolutely not. They're not a Stone Age people. They're literally here, like in real life. So I want to definitely remind you all that all these comments that you left here in the chat, we would love to see them in the comments after the show. You can't leave comments on a video during a live, but after the show, would love for you to leave them in the comment section, because I think that it's really good just to put record that we're thinking this way. And I'm going to say, let's put the last thought. Reese, because he's in London, I'll read it with my want-to-be London accent. Ultimately, one of the prolonged sins in America's history is the intentional erasure and suppression of the indigenous native communities, of whom understand the delicacy of the land and its needs. Correct. And let me also add to that, Black people. Because the enslaved people of this nation, once they removed and murdered and pillaged all of the native people off of the land, they brought in African people that they stole from their native land, who were also farmers on their own lands, and said, okay, we need you to farm here. And they had to then become experts of these lands. And then they couldn't even have these lands. So it's a constant. I'm telling you, that's what my thesis is going to be about. When I go get my PhD, my thesis is on Black indigeneity in America. Okay. And not the ones who be like, we was always here. Some were, not everybody. But you know who is here? Who is here is our guest today. We have author, journalist, writer, David Heath joining us. And I'm very excited. I said author and writer. Yeah, those are the same. Those are different. David, how are you?
Good. How are you, Amanda? Great to see you.
I'm well. You look very cheerful. So I was telling folks, which we were talking about last night, that, you know, you're somebody that I came across during, the last year. And once I really began to realize, like, oh, this mainstream media is full of liars, I was like, I need to find folks that are really thinking responsibly about like what they're putting out there, and are also like cultivating, like, this is stuff that you might miss. I'm putting it here for you. And so that was something that you were doing on your Instagram, and you still do, that I really appreciate. So shout out to you, David. So let's get into our 60-second headlines. Stand by.
60-second headline. Gonna run down some news right quick.
Run it down, mama. Put us on.
It's a fun show. Okay. So David, I don't know if a lot of people in my comments even know about Pete Hegseth, because I think some people are just like, let me not even think about it. So can you just catch us up? Actually, you know what? I'll give them a basic, and then you tell us what's been going on. Okay. So you guys, Pete Hegseth is an ex-Fox News host, former Army National Guard officer. He is the author of The War on Warriors. behind the betrayal of the men who keep us free. So you already know he's on some otherness. He's been relieved of 2 jobs in veteran services with accusations of squandering funds, has also been accused of sexual harassment, and has also been accused of heavy drinking while in leadership positions, which is a polite way of saying he's showing up to work slizzard with it. That's really what they're trying to say. He is also currently in the midst of Senate hearings to be put in position as a United States Secretary of Defense. Trump in his second cabinet is really just starting out with a bang. So can you catch us up on these hearings? What do we need to know? Why is this guy right for the job, wrong for the job, etc.?
Yeah, well, I think the big picture is that this is a really important position in the government. And the other thing is that Donald Trump has already said some really crazy things about how he's going to use the military. For example, he has said that, well, in his past administration, he actually tried to get the defense secretary to shoot protesters outside the White House in the lake. You know, he asked them, "Can't we just shoot these people in the lake?" Mark Esper, who was the defense secretary at the time, thought that was crazy, you know, and he didn't do it. So now we have, and not only that, Mark Esper says that in the last administration that Trump asked about bombing Mexico, you know, bombing Mexico to get the drug cartel. You know, that was how he was going to solve the drug problem. And of course, Esper said that's crazy, you know?
Correct.
So now we have, and more recently, Trump has said that he would use the military to go after the enemies within. You know, and that's people like Democrats who are on the select, you know, January 6th Select Committee. You know, those are the enemy within. So he's talked about actually, you know, I don't know, sending National Guards to their home and having them arrested. I don't know. Anyway, so now you have somebody, and none of that happened. We didn't bomb hurricanes in the last administration. We didn't set off nuclear weapons inside a hurricane. But now he's, you know, trying to appoint somebody who seems to really, I mean, he doesn't have the qualifications for the job. Like can
you lay out for us what the job of Secretary of Defense does?
I mean, he's over 4 branches of the military. So you have, you know, the Army, Navy, Marines, and now the Space Force. Did I leave out one? Air Force. So the job of the Secretary of Defense is like I said, one of the most critical jobs in the government, because he makes decisions about deploying the armed forces. There's a really great documentary called Fog of War about where Robert McNamara talks about his time as the defense secretary during the Vietnam War. Oh. And he admits in this movie, that's a very compelling movie, you should go see it if you haven't, that he committed war crimes. So, and he's very, you know, so yeah, so the Secretary of Defense
is he contrite about it, or is he just like matter of fact?
No, he's very he's very contrite.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So and he even goes back to World War II and our bombing of Tokyo and saying that those were war crimes too.
Yes, they were.
So anyway, the point being that this is a very important job, and like you said, Pete Hegseth, his background is in running a couple of tiny veterans, you know, nonprofits, where he's being accused of essentially taking the money that they were collecting and partying, you know, getting drunk, having to be carried to his room, chasing women, going after women that worked for him, things like that.
Classy stuff. Classy.
Yeah, really classy, really classy. And just to put it in context, during the Bush administration, the first Bush, he nominated a guy named John Tower to be the defense secretary, who was a very powerful U.S. senator at the time, who had the qualifications. He had the qualifications to be. He was an expert in defense. You know, he knew what he was doing. He wasn't just, you know. And so, anyway, John Tower had many of the same allegations against him. He was a womanizer. He was a drunk, and the Republicans in that case didn't confirm him. They joined with the Democrats and they said, no, we need a real defense secretary who we can rely on. And
oh wow,
yeah. So Pete,
that was a different time.
Yeah, it was.
Would you say those were different kinds of Republicans?
Yes, I mean, you know, if you go back to when I was, you know, younger, we didn't have this sort of like culture war going. I mean, there was some spirit of bipartisanship. There's some major bills that got passed in Congress, you know, in my lifetime, at least. I don't know about yours, but like that were bipartisan bills. And that is those days are kind of dead now. And now it's like it's just warfare, you know. It's like
gangs.
Yeah. So it looks like what happened yesterday is it kind of looks like the key I think news coming out of yesterday was that Joni Ernst, who was in the military, who is a victim of sexual assault, and who was possibly a no vote on Pete Hegseth. She came out on a Iowa radio talk show and said she's going to vote for him. So that means there's really kind of it's very likely that he's going to be the defense secretary now, even though he kind of looks like a Matt Gaetz, you know. He's kind of that caliber of a candidate, you know.
I mean, I'm just going to read some of the headlines from yesterday, you guys. All right. These are just some of the headlines. The Hegseth hearing was a national embarrassment. 5 questions Hegseth dodged at his Defense Department confirmation hearing. By the way, he was asked, would you shoot people in the knee if you were asked to? And he did not say no. Okay? He did not say no. Second, third, Pete Hegseth's fiery confirmation hearing ends with GOP signaling approval. What? And then finally, I'm not perfect. Pete Hegseth testifies on sexual assault and drinking claims. He also, by the way, had a baby outside of his marriage. I think in his second marriage, I couldn't even keep up with the marriages. I mean, it was like a novela trying to keep up. So basically what you're saying is that we're in for an even worse situation than we already thought with just Trump if Hegseth was put in place.
If you like, the Wall Street Journal this morning had an editorial that basically said he dodged all the questions and we have no idea what he would do as defense secretary, which is true. I mean, he kept, every time somebody tried to ask him a yes, no question, he wouldn't even give a yes or no. Or anytime somebody said, what about this allegation? What about, he kept calling them anonymous smears, and they actually are not anonymous smears. One of the people who smeared him was his own mother. So
when your mama smear you, that's the basic bottom line for the truth.
Yeah. I mean, she came out at one point and said that he was bad to women. So, you know, that's his own mother. So, yeah. So he doesn't have a stellar background. It looks like, and he has very extreme views about women in combat, women in the military. He kept acting as though the military is some woke organization that focuses on DEI, and you know, it's just not, you know. And so you know, the military has historically and traditionally been apolitical, just like the Justice Department is supposed to be apolitical, and Pete Hegseth is about as partisan as it gets.
Well, speaking of partisan as it gets, let's just stay in the Trump land for a minute. So real quickly, can you just tell us what this means? Trump wants to replace income tax with tariffs. He demonstrated this double down. He said it before, but he's like really double downing on this again, y'all. He was on Truth Social. He said, I am today announcing that I will create the external revenue service. So not the internal, not the IRS, the ERS, to collect our tariffs, duties, and revenue that come from foreign sources. We will begin charging those that make money off of us with trade, and they will start paying, finally, in all caps, their fair share. Why or why not is this an absolutely terrible idea?
It truly makes absolutely no sense. Like it is so absurd that it's kind of hard to critique it.
That's the next level of absurd.
Yeah. So tariffs, like, so somebody posted, Mark Andreessen posted a chart not too long ago that showed in the early days of the US government, like back when we first became a country, most of our revenue came from tariffs. And so he's using, and so I guess this new idea came to him that, oh, we'll just replace income tax with tariffs. And that way we are this great country and we should have other countries pay for our government, you know? And the thing that has been said so many times, but that, I don't know, it doesn't stick, or it's like, she's never going to understand this, is other countries do not pay the tariffs. They don't pay the tariffs. When you put a tariff on goods coming from China, we pay them. You know,
that's literally what they claim the whole Revolutionary War was about, was taxing without representation.
Exactly. That's why we are a country. And so, so the White House did recently an analysis of this idea. The Biden White House did an analysis of what would it take. I don't know, because I guess it's, you know, people are talking about it now. If you were to actually try to do this, if you were actually going to replace income tax with tariffs, what would you have to do? And the answer is, and this is like way oversimplified, but the answer is you would have to put 70% tariffs on all imports. So 70%, all the things we buy from other countries, you would have to increase the price of every product by 70%.
So this is really a model that a lot of rich people live by, which is, I'm not going to pay my bills from work. I'm just going to have my bills paid by the dividends that are growing from my investments. And that is how a lot of like these wealthy families stay rich, and why you see them not having to work, because their investments are quote unquote working for them. Their money is working for them. So when you invest, and it doesn't have to be like crazy stock investments, it's just having enough money in the market to where you're getting enough money out on a consistent enough basis that it pays your bills. This is a country, but that's I feel like how you're thinking of things.
Right now, today, the money, it takes trillions of dollars to fund the government. Right now, today, of all the revenues that the government collects, 2% are tariffs. 2%. 10% are corporate income taxes. Now, what he wants to do is he wants to cut the corporate income tax, so and try to, you know, use tariffs to replace that. I'm just I'll mention one other thing if we have time. Like, so he did a little bit of this in his first term, right? So he kind of declared a trade war with China in his first term, and he raised tariffs on Chinese goods, and it ended up raising about, I think, $66 billion that he did. This is like 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Do you want to know what happened to that $66 billion?
Million or billion?
Billion.
Billion? Oh my God. Wait, is it in Israel?
No. So because of this, China put tariffs on US farm products, and farmers were devastated. And so, you know, we took the tariff money from China, you know, from Chinese goods, and we had to give it to the farmers because their incomes had been devastated. So basically, it was a lot. We didn't raise any money. We raised no money from it. It all had to pay off people who were getting, you know, were losing the trade war with China.
Well, last but not least, and we're going to get into this quick because we have Doc Melina Abdullah already here with us. Just give me your final thoughts on why you think in the last, like, like sliding out the door. You know, like when you're in an argument with somebody and as you're walking out the door, you're like, and your mama, and then you leave. Like, that's what this is. I think it's actually quite interesting. The Biden administration announced Tuesday that it will remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorism list. And it didn't just announce it on Tuesday. It announced it at the end of day on Tuesday. I want to make a point of that, y'all. End of day. Because when I spoke to you last night, you were like, when?
Right. I hadn't heard that
it had
story.
just posted 2 hours prior. So President Barack Obama took them off the state-sponsored terrorism list in 2015. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo put them back on in 2021. And now they're saying that they don't have any legitimate reason to keep them on. Of course, this can be reversed. But like, any idea why they would do this?
Yeah, apparently it had to do with a couple of years ago, Cuba arrested a bunch of protesters. And the Catholic Church, Catholic bishops had been negotiating to get those people released. These are Cubans, right? And as part of the deal, Cuba said, well, why are we on why are we considered a state-sponsored terrorist state? You know, because we aren't, you know, which I think they aren't, right? If you look at the facts, they don't sponsor terrorism, right? That was a political move by the Trump administration. Trump did this. Mike Pompeo did it in his final week as Secretary of State. So
this is how they move.
It happened. 4 years ago, same thing. They did this at the very last second. After years of there's been effort to normalize relationships with Cuba, going back to the Jimmy Carter administration, but it's politically difficult because there's so many Cuban Americans in this country that don't want that.
I see. Well, I went to Cuba, and I guess maybe I'll put a photo album on my Patreon, you guys, of when I went to Cuba. I also met one of the finest men in the world while I was in Cuba. So I just want to put that out there as well. We're not just missing out on their medical, we're also missing out on their fineness in terms of the people. So but I really, the level of artistry and education and culture and all the things that are existing in Cuba that, are just not getting access. And then the people are not getting access to what they need. They did just join BRICS. So we'll see if that allows them to, be able to get around all of these embargoes and sanctions to possibly get what they need to the people.
But, the irony of this is that because of these economic sanctions, that in the last 2 years, there's been 500,000 Cubans come to the United States as asylum seekers. So we're
still spending.
The fact that Trump is put this designation back on Cuba led to more immigration. I mean, to people coming across the border.
Which he is always like, no immigration. We have immigration, y'all. We have so much immigration, y'all, because we destabilize everywhere. Okay? That's why. It's like your man acting up so crazy that you go live at his mama house. Like, that's basically what it is. You're like, you know what? You did this. You're going to take care of me. David, thank you so much for joining us. This was so enlightening. And, a lot of times I feel like I am missing little pieces of the political puzzle that people like you are able to fill in. And I know our guests feel the same way. So thank you once again for joining us here at Views from Amandaland. Remember, y'all can follow David Heath at David Heath on Instagram. And you can also support other independent journalists because it is imperative that we lift you all up.
Thanks, Amanda.
Bye. Oh, man. The insights. Thank you so much, David. Now we're just going to move right into our next guest because she's been patiently waiting and I don't want to keep her continuing to wait. Y'all, we are bringing to the stage Dr. Melina Abdullah.
Hey, good morning. Happy Founders Day. Good to see you.
Oh, what sorority are you in?
I'm Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, the first and finest.
The
Yeah.
first and finest. The AKAs,
Yes.
they don't be liking me. They don't be liking
They
me.
don't like you. We do like you.
They be on my
Yes.
head because I played a character that was an AKA. I'm like, I was just an employee.
Look, we do like, I know my soror Kim Holmes comes and helps you a lot. So
Mhm.
we do like you. We do like you. Happy Founders Day. Happy King Day. Happy Survival Day. We still here. Black people still surviving in the midst of all this. I didn't ask you, can we cuss on here?
No.
In the midst of all this BS, all this bull crap.
Yeah.
All the craziness around, and you know, I'm in Los Angeles. It is every morning that we wake up is Happy Survival Day. So, you know, we making it.
Now, you are not just an academic. You're not just a civic leader. I know you do a radio show that I want to make sure that people can listen to, but you also ran with Dr. Cornel West in this last election. But you work with the Black Lives Matter grassroots movement. And I see you often like, y'all need to know the difference. And I would love for you to just illuminate for people this Black Lives Matter movement. I think people may think is done after the smear campaigns and after the revelations around mismanagement of money, et cetera, et cetera. Can you please clarify for us what Black Lives Matter at this present time is in the form of organizations that are bringing the movement and continuing the movement?
Sure. So I'm so glad you asked. So in the very beginning, Black Lives Matter as a movement, we were birthed July 13th, 2013. That's the date that George Zimmerman, the murderer of Trayvon Martin, was acquitted. And I'm sure that many of our folks know that all around the country, we rose up. You know, it was intuitive organizing in Los Angeles. There were thousands of us in the streets. We didn't need social media then to tell us, you know, when Black people get angry or happy or whatever it is, we go to one place. We don't need a call to action. We all go to Africa Town, also known as Leimert Park. And so on that date, I was actually with a bunch of my folks, some of whom are now actually displaced from the Altadena fire. We formed something called the Mama Brigade, and about 4 or 5 single mamas gathered on my big orange couch and then decided, let's get out in these streets. So we put our kids to bed and found somebody to sit with them and went out to Leimert Park. And there were thousands of folks there, and we marched. We marched for 3 days. We had really an initial understanding that the only way to get justice in the name of Trayvon Martin, but also on behalf of everybody we marched for in the past, is to make this a movement, not a moment. So that's the first slogan we came up with, was a movement, not a moment. And so on the 3rd day of protest, we were called together by somebody who most folks will know, Patrisse Cullors, sent out a text and said to meet at her Black artist community that night. And so I was in the streets with, by then I had my 3 children. I also had who I call my spirit babies, who are my students, and also, you know, the Mama Brigade. We all met at her Black artist community that night. That was the formation of Black Lives Matter. And until really 2020, that was kind of pure, right? That we were a movement. We were just regular people who had other jobs, who, you know, were caring for our kids, and the movement had absolutely no money, right? We had no money. We got a little bit of a grant in 2015, I believe it was, from Jay-Z and Beyonce gave us what we call the title money. And we used that to finally hire somebody, but we didn't have any real money. It was, I think, $250,000 that had to be spread out through 40 chapters, right? To support 40 chapters. So it's not no huge amount of money, but we had no money. We weren't moving on money. We would rotate. We would literally pass a hat at meetings and then rotate who pays for the $1 burritos from El Pollo Loco or the Costco pizza. We had no money. We hijacked our copy machines at work. You know, those are the kinds of things
Yeah.
that we did. And then in 2020, you know, there is this moment that I call the moment that the world cracked wide open, right? When we're all at home because of COVID, but also we witnessed the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, of Breonna Taylor, and of George Floyd. And there's this kind of renaissance of Black Lives Matter where, you know, resources come flooding in. Patrice had stepped away. The other two co-founders, these are the people who called the first meeting, who coined the term Black Lives Matter. But there were dozens of us, then hundreds of us, and thousands of us on the ground. So they were not the only part of the movement. We were never just a hashtag, right? So Alicia and Opal stepped back and were doing other things. Patrice was still there, but she had declared that she was stepping back. And so we were moving kind of as a grassroots entity. And she came back in and kind of became the person who was in charge of what was called the Global Network Foundation that she had initiated. She chartered that, and they received all of the resources and built an infrastructure and hired a bunch of consultants. And then fast forward to 2022, through 2020 and 2021, the most visible folks, who were people like Patrice and me and others, were getting a lot of hits, death threats, all kinds of stuff. My house got swatted with me and my children in it 3 times, you know, had the DA's husband point a gun at my chest and say,
What?
I'll shoot you. Oh, girl, I can show you so much video. It's crazy. Had a white supremacist pull up in front of my house in a mobile home. Later, we would find out it might have been full of explosives.
Oh my God.
All kinds of things happening. But I'm kind of hood, right? I'm from East Oakland, you know.
But I'm kind of hood.
And, you know, people talk about this gun in my chest, and, you know, it was traumatizing, but that's not actually the first gun that was pulled on me, right?
Okay.
You know, I always say I've been in jail 8 times. No, I've been in jail 8 times for righteous stuff, right? You know,
Good
there
trouble.
was the earlier stuff that I can't lift up, right? I shouldn't lift up. So all these hits, when they hit me on Twitter, so, you know, and sometimes you'll say, get out my comments. It really doesn't pierce my skin. My skin is
Listen,
really thick.
y'all need to know. I had like DM Doc Melina, and I was like, you know, I hope that you're not taking any of this to heart, because I forgot what they was on you about. And he was like, girl, I don't listen to none of this. You're like, none of this matters. I was like, I wish I had that gift.
Yes. Look, when, you know, raised in East Oakland, came of age in the early 90s, it's a lot more that I've dealt with than that. So, you know, your Twitter comments, your Instagram comments don't really shake me. But I also recognize other people, and I feel comfortable saying it because she said it, that it did pierce Patrice's skin. And so she was dealing with major mental health issues and stepped back and wrote this memorandum of understanding that, so by then there was a Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, which was receiving all of these resources. We know in 2020 alone, it was about $90 million.
Wow.
Then there was a movement on the ground, which was the part that I was leading, that we called ourselves Black Lives Matter Grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing the work. We didn't have time to pause and say, where's the money going? Or how do we get access to this resource? We moving, because we know that the moment the world cracked wide open is a moment. And if we don't take full advantage now, that it'll close. And so we're going to do people's budget. We're going to be in these streets. We're going to get rid of this DA. We're going to do all of these things. We're going to build our chapters. We are going to do everything that we can. We're going to defund the police. I know that's not popular to say now, but I still say defund the police.
I still say it too.
Yeah. Forget the, you know, the political parties. I don't care if it's a snappy slogan. Good. It's better than not being a snappy slogan, right?
Listen, the snappy slogans is what really be working for the other side. I mean,
right.
Marketing is marketing. Snappy slogans get people to understand faster than trying to figure out, what are you saying?
Right. Right. And so we wound up just moving. And then Patrice decided to step back. And remember, the Global Network Foundation had all these resources. So she writes this memo saying all the resources should, first, the idea was to take two really important movement organizers and put them in charge of the Global Network Foundation. That was Makani Temba and Monifa Bendele, who were, you know, absolutely on the ground doing phenomenal work.
But this would have been like administrative.
Right. So this was, okay, and I believe in this principle. Let's take people who know the movement and put them in charge of the money. And Makani has had, both of them had experience kind of managing money in the past. Makani had been with a previous foundation. Monifa was with a foundation. So they knew what they were doing in terms of money as well. They're movement sisters. So I thought that was great. They put out this announcement that the three leaders of Black Lives Matter are Makani, Monifa, and me, right? Great. So Makani and Monifa are telling these consultants, we want to see the books. We can't take over anything if we don't know what's happening. The consultant who had legal control would not show them the books. So Makani and Monifa put out a statement and said, no, we're not taking over. We recommend that all the resources go directly to Black Lives Matter Grassroots. So Patrice writes another memo. All the resources are going to Black Lives Matter Grassroots. She steps back. One day, and I believe it was March of 2022. I know it was March of 2022. I get a call from the consultant who I'd had a cordial relationship with, but was not a movement person. He'd never even been to a protest. I insisted that he meet me for our first in-person meeting at a protest. And he goes, oh, this is my first protest. Drives up in his white Tesla, right? So I get a call from him and he says, I intend to keep Black Lives Matter indefinitely and build a board of people I trust. So we try to talk him out of it. We have, you know, these letters, a private letter, then a public letter, because I didn't want it to derail what was happening with Black Lives Matter. I knew any confusion would, you know, get people off track. So let's try to do this the way that we say call in versus call out. So we called them in. Didn't work. So we wind up filing a lawsuit in September 2022, suing for our resources. He didn't only take the money. He took our platforms, which I used to run. We built them to 5 million
This
followers.
one person?
One person. He had all legal authority. He took the platforms, the money, and messed up our name. Like before this, Black Lives Matter, there had been this study. It was the second most trusted name behind Barack Obama. And now it's like all the scandal and $6 million mansions, which you can get a mansion in LA for $6 million.
I was going to say a mini.
That's what it is. It's a mini mansion. But, you know, all the scandal happened, and this was all the doing of this consultant. And I believe in naming names. His name is Shalomia Bowers. He's a
Oakland. She
Shalomia
said, naming
Bowers.
Can we spell it?
Zionist. SHALOMYAH, last name BOWERS. And he's a Black Zionist. He vacations in Israel. And yeah, that's what he is. I don't know where he came from. I don't know.
He's an incel.
Yes.
How? Okay, wait.
Yeah.
My mind is blowing.
Well, let me give the two other names and then I'll be quiet. Okay, two other names. So the board of people he trusts. The now chair of the board, who's been trotted out as kind of the spokesperson for Black Lives Matter, who's also never been on the ground, doesn't do organizing work. She says she was a consultant. She had a group of media consultant called the Amplifiers, but she herself had like no social media following. So I don't know how you
Amplifying.
Yeah, you ain't amplifying yourself. I don't know how. Anyway, her name is Cicely Gay, Cicley Gay, Gay, and she is now the chair of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. And then there's a third person named Dejanay Parker, who's really Shalomia Bauer's best friend and my former student. So I'm wondering how far back does this setup go? I had no idea they knew each other, but she was in my class before this whole thing went down. She used to call me Mama Melina. And yeah, so these are the three who run the foundation and have access to not just the 90 million raised in 2020, but we got to remember we're at 2025. So hundreds of millions of dollars that they have access to. They have the platforms, they have the email lists, and really they have sullied our good name.
Well, I ain't from the hood, but I had enough hood brothers in my life to do hood math. I'm also a hip hop head, and you can see Shook Ones is right above me. So basically, Dejanay Parker was approached and was paid. That's how this happened.
Right.
I mean, literally, like that's just how that's the math here is Dejanay really did love you, but she must have had some type, either her love for you was to be you, or she had something else going on that she was like, well, if I do this, I'm set for life. Or they threatened her. One of those three things happened, and this is where we are. But now that when you said that Shalomia Bowers is a Black Zionist, that struck me so hard, because we're really in a time where we have to, like, I need all Black people to really grasp that we are not in the 60s. We are not the Black community of the 60s. And there are so many Black people who are against Black people. And there are so many Black people who are fully immersed in imperialism, in empire, in capitalism. And it's like people don't acknowledge this. And so they don't want to learn about the things that can, sir, what are you? I'm like, sorry. For those listening on the podcast, that was my cat doing something behind me. And I was like, no, we're going to stop you. But I just feel like Israel is one of those spaces where people have not, Black people in particular, have not allowed themselves to get more information from. But that is a space where we have seen Black folks willing to harm other Black folks in their connectivity with Israel. Like when people were mad at me for distancing myself from Tiffany Haddish, I'm like, I don't want anybody to think that we are still cool when she has aligned herself with this government, with apartheid, with these people. And I have on national television many times said, that's my girl. No, I don't want you to be mistaken. you know?
Right.
So this is what I mean. But when you start studying Zionism and you start studying how entrenched they are in doing this type of work, you realize that it's the same as the FBI. It's the same as COINTELPRO. It's all the things. And they have said many times that Black people are their fear. Black people being united is the fear of every imperialist government, honestly.
Right. Well, it's the Zionism, but it's connected, right? One of my spiritual teachers always says, some people are motivated by money, some people are motivated by movement, right? So Bowers is a Zionist, but he's also motivated by money, right? So I wasn't accidentally saying that he rode up in his Tesla, right?
No, we heard it.
Right. Cicley Gay, who has filed sent me a cease and desist letter to stop talking bad about her. I asked my lawyer friends, they were like, are you lying? Did you say she has an STD or something? I said, no. They said, well, what are you saying? And I said, that she stole the money and is living high on the hog, literally on the money that comes off of our blood, sweat, and tears, off the blood of Mike Brown, off the blood of, I'm headed to court support for Christopher DeAndre Mitchell. that we protested in front of her house. She bought this mini mansion in Alpharetta, Georgia. And we've got the address. And we went with with one of our justice moms who is part of the Black Lives Matter Atlanta chapter. And we said, Cecily, give the money back, right? Give the money back. You know, don't use it for your own mini mansion and Porsche Cayenne and $3,000 dresses and vacation. She said she was living a soft girl summer and vacations on Martha's Vineyard. That's not what. Black? Yeah, they're all Black. They're all Black. So that's what I'm saying. It's. I don't know that Cecily's a Zionist, right?
No. Shalomia is the one I was talking about.
Shalomia is a Zionist. All three of them are motivated by money. And money caused them to betray their people. Money for themselves caused them to be super thieves, right? That stole the money that rightfully belongs to movement. And it's sad and outraging and also won't stop us from doing the actual work, because I want to show how dirty they are, but I also want to make sure they don't distract us from doing the work of Black liberation. Because we started with no money. We're going to continue whether we have money or not. It would be great if we could get the money back. They blocked us from even getting into court. They have the same attorney as Hillary Clinton. So we can't match that kind of legal movement, right? So they blocked us with something called an anti-SLAPP motion. So the judge, who's a Black Republican judge, refused to even hear our case. And so, you know, we hope they come to an understanding and, you know, their inner morality wakes up. But even if it doesn't, we're still moving because, again, I'm in Los Angeles and we have tens of thousands of Black people who are displaced who need us. We need to get these convictions in. We need to be there for, there's a young boy who was killed at Texas Tech over the holidays. We got to be there for his mother, right? And so we can't not do the work that's necessary. We can't stop saying defund the police and organizing for a people's budget and, you know, still saying free Palestine. That seems to be quieted. You know, we can't stop doing it because we don't have money. You know, last time I saw you was at a protest. We didn't have no money, but, you know,
we was there.
Look, we there. And we're going to keep being there and hope we get the money back, because with the money, we could help. You know, these folks will be back out. I've been in Altadena about every other day since the fires. We'll be back out tomorrow. And, you know, we want to make sure that our displaced folks, many of them are movement folks. There's 3 Panther elders. One of them will be 90 this year. Who are displaced. And one of them, his house burned to the ground. We want to be able to say, Baba Hank, who's like my dad, right? Baba Hank, are you eating right? Like, he's vegan and he's one of the healthiest people I know, right? But do you have produce? I'm glad that, you know, you're able to afford to be in this hotel, but do you have produce, right? Brother Martin is sleeping on a couch, right? He doesn't have, we talk about the GoFundMes. These are people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. They don't know how to use a GoFundMe, right? When I'm like, how do I get you cash so you could get new clothes, new shoes, he was like underwear, right?
Right.
How do I get you cash? Because there's a dignity that's lost when you say, drive through the distribution center and maybe somebody will have donated underwear in your size, right?
And you pulling stuff out of a bin.
Right,
yeah.
Right. We want to just say, here's some cash, Brother Martin, right? Here's some cash. Let's figure out what you need. Let's get you set up with your new phone. Let's, you know, but we don't have the resources to do that because they stole them to vacation on Martha's Vineyard, to take trips to Israel, to buy gowns and sponsor VIP parties at the Invest Fest, right? And, you know, we would like to have those resources back, but we gonna move whether we get them or not.
So we have some questions from folks. But first, I didn't know any, like, I don't know that. I think part of what's been really effective is the suppression of this truth. You know, not even part of, that's what's been really effective, is the suppression of this truth. I remember when this was coming out and we were shooting Insecure, and I remember being in the van. Where were we going? We were going somewhere. And I remember reading to the group, like, they saying that all this money got stolen. Like, what is this? And, you know, everybody was kind of just like, I mean, we don't know. And so they plant a seed of doubt, right? And that's what springs forth. And there's just such a wellspring of toxicity in general anyway, that all they have to do is plant that seed of doubt, and people will lunge and lurch. You know, I just experienced that last year, where they planted this seed of doubt that I was lying about Kamala Harris. I was never lying about Kamala Harris. She said that racism, that this isn't a racist country. She did say that. And I said, I didn't like it. And they was like, you're spreading mistruths about Kamala Harris. I'm just like, but all it takes, and I absolutely believe that was Zionist driven, by the way. But the fact of all of this being put on the backs of Black people, these people didn't just turn on their movement. They didn't just turn on the movement, and they didn't just turn on their people. They were willing to sacrifice, like, their connection to culture for this. They were willing to be the Blacks, that they were willing to be used as Black people. And that's the part for me that it's like Clarence Thomas knows that his efficacy is tied to his Blackness. And they're willing to use that and weaponize their Blackness against Black people. And that is a whole other level of sinister for me that I can't really grasp. And so, like, when people compare me to Candace Owens, I'm like, cut it out. For a myriad of reasons, we are not the same, but namely because I would never weaponize my own Blackness against my people as a tool that these people are using, because her efficacy is tied to her Blackness. Or else Tommy Loren would be popping, and she's not.
I'm gonna have to write that one down. That's right. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
You know?
Yeah.
So let's take some questions from folks. Let me tell you, the folks here at the Views from Amanda Land Squad, they be thinking. So let's go here. This is a classroom. So everyone needs to address our guest as Dr. Abdullah. All right. Don't be just throwing questions out. Hi, Dr. Abdullah. Thank you for your time. How are we planning to fight back against the narrative they've manufactured?
So that's a great question. And the answer is really, I don't know, or in every way we possibly can. Right. So, you know, we tried lawsuits. The lawsuit didn't work. We're going to keep fighting, right? But we're also going to not stop working. So, you know, I'm Muslim also, and there's a teaching about being the cleaning glass of water. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to say, you know, if you put a dirty glass of water in front of someone, if they're thirsty enough, they'll drink it. But if you put it next to a clean glass of water, they're going to choose the clean glass every time. So our vision, our mission, our work is to be the clean glass of water. You know, be the clean glass of water. Yesterday, you know, the thieves sent out a text message saying donate to them. Well, the clean glass of water is knowing that, but we're actually the ones who are in Altadena, Pasadena. And, you know, the greatest blessing is I walked into a space day before yesterday, and we were moving things. We donated masks and new clothes, and, you know, we're with this brother at Pasadena Church. And I was sorting clothes, and the sister walked up and she recognized me and she said, "Oh, you're here." And then the greatest blessing was, she said, or honor, she said, "Of course you're here." And, you know, that's who we have to be, of course you're here.
Yes.
Of course you're here. And so
that's the way it's good when people are like,
yeah,
you hear? That makes sense.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so, we're just, I think at the core of however we move is to be the clean glass of water. And also, I see his name, Rolando. If you could share the truth, right?
Yeah.
They stole our platform, so we don't have a way to be loud about it, right? We went from 5 million followers to, I think we got like 25,000 followers now on Instagram.
So where should people follow?
BLM Grassroots. BLM Grassroots.
Is there any reason in particular why you've stuck with the name instead of starting something new?
Everyone has said change the name, but it's kind of like this. We built Black Lives Matter. And I feel like Tina Turner, I just want my name, right? I don't want them to have my name. I don't even particularly love the name Black Lives Matter, but it's mine. It's ours. It's the movement in the streets. It does not belong to 3 consultants, who are pimping it, right? So I don't want to give it up.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's that. I mean, I think there's now this literal interview. It's like I have a new task. Like I have to be a bullhorn about the truth about this.
Yes.
Because so often you're just the truth is never loud enough, and they quiet people who tell the truth, and the people who are able to be loud sometimes are just not courageous enough to do so. And so they don't take up the bullhorn. I'm taking up the bullhorn.
Well, look, that's the greatest thing. Thank you. We need you to take up the bullhorn, and we need everybody to, whether they're Amanda Seals or, No,
it's the people. Yeah, right. You have to disseminate.
That's right.
All right, a couple more questions. Hamid, Dr. Abdullah. Oh, I like this car in the picture. Dr. Abdullah, how can we better insulate our movements in today from being taken over and misappropriated? Because, so is it fair to say that Patrice didn't know that these people were funny style and they had just essentially, they were operatives and like they just moved in?
I don't know, like Patrice, that's a really complicated question for me because I was friends with her, very close friends with her before all of this happened.
I see.
I don't know. I don't know what she knew. I know that who's legally in charge is who she handed things over to is Bowers. Bowers is the mastermind, and he is not stupid, right? He's the mastermind. He's evil, but not stupid, right?
Typically.
Yeah. And, he manipulated all of that. I don't know what Patrice knew or didn't know. We still communicate, and I can't say what she knew or didn't know. I know that there's some things that she was not forthcoming with me about, but I've never called her a thief herself.
Got you. So in this situation, where we are now, knowing that people are still, in cells, etc., how do we better insulate our movements in today from being taken over and misappropriated?
Look, we just need to keep them mass movements. The more of us that are there, the more of us that are doing righteous work, the more of us that share both the responsibility but also ownership of movement, right? That insulates it. We need to be shunning these people. Don't take a picture with Cecily Gay, who's, she should be shamed. She should be, she's everywhere though now. She's been at like all the not on a protest line. She's on all these red carpets that she can buy her way onto, at the UNCF thing or at the, whatever, in an expensive dress. And it shouldn't be just me. I got in trouble last year because at the Trayvon Martin dinner, they were there and I was like, nah, they not just gonna stand here. So I got up and started yelling at them and told them that they were thieves. And
as you should. Yeah,
I waited till the dinner was over. I wouldn't disrupt, Sister Sabrina. But afterwards, y'all not gonna stand there and be highfalutin in your fancy dress and think that we gonna be quiet. So we didn't, and they should be shamed and shunned everywhere they go.
Why was she even there?
To show off a checkbook. So, you know, they are in places, they are literally visible now, trying to, they've taken the Global Network Foundation off their public name, and they're trying to say that they are Black Lives Matter. That gets them more money, right? So
it's just a scam.
It's a scam. If you were following BLK Lives Matter, I want people to look at their social media. If they look like talking points from the Democratic Party, if they look like, you know, capitalist class kind of, you know, that's because that's what it is. And, you know, they
like
want
respectability politics type BS.
Absolutely. They've said their new tagline is that they don't want to be boxed in by Black death. They want to be celebrating Black joy. They don't want to, I mean, it's so insulting to these families whose blood, yeah, that's her. But
she had the nerve to be posed up in front of the Black Lives Matter logo too. That's why I had to give you that picture too.
Well, what you should show is what she looked like before. We need a before and after shot because she wasn't.
See, I was trying to be
that glamorous. Yeah, we have a picture of her before all this where she was about, and this isn't fat shaming, but I don't know how
shaming.
She lost like 70 pounds and got new teeth, right? So she had different teeth and was a lot bigger and is wearing a shirt that says, "I'm billing you for this conversation." So, you know, that says who she is. But I think that what they're trying to do is really, they're pimping us, right? They're pimping our work so that they do want to breed confusion so people will donate to them.
Yeah.
And they also, I think they want to smother us and knock over our clean glass of water. Because if there you go, that's the before shot, right?
Yeah, that's the before. The reason why this is valid, in case anyone here is like, they're mean. The reason why this is valid is because when you're stealing money and then you showing up like this, it's because you were able to have the money to show up like this.
That's right.
Okay. Like this transition doesn't happen because, you know, I didn't use any of the money on me. Like that's not. I did not expect this today. Like I didn't know it was this clear.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very clear. It's very clear.
Last but not least, Kashawn, who is based in LA, where can we donate funds and ensure they are allocated to the BLM Grassroots efforts? Thank you so much for asking. So BLM Grassroots is on all social media. We also have a website with a donate button. BLMGrassroots.org. We're actually, if people are willing, we're actually asking for people to donate through our GoFundMe for the Dina relief efforts. And that is GoFundMe.com/BLMLA. And the reason is because we want to be able to just cash it out and hand out the cash, right? Because that's what folks need. So if they don't need a tax write-off, you know, please donate through the GoFundMe. We can also demonstrate if people go to the GoFundMe. The reason we only had that as a fundraising mechanism for BLMLA is because we want it to be transparent. So you'll see on the GoFundMe that it says over the life of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, which is the very first chapter of Black Lives Matter. We've raised $3.16 million over the life. So over the last 11 years. Well, in 2022, we spent $3.2 million, which is more than we raised to purchase a building that we call BLMLA Center for Black Power. So we want to be clear about what we're doing with the money, and GoFundMe allows us to also have some transparency. I'm saying all that to say that we don't buy $6 million mansions. We buy $3 million buildings in the hood that, you know, students deserve can use. And, you know, we had many events for Panther elders in that building. And that's what we do with the money that we have. None of us take a salary. We do the work because God moves us, our people move us into this work. And we can't just submit to white supremacist, patriarchal, heteronormative capitalism. We got to smash it. what would you say is the key defining difference? Because people are like, oh, like their posts are positive, so it's hard to tell the difference. For people in general, how do you tell the difference between folks who are really outside and really doing the work of the people and folks who are really just creating a nonprofit that looks like it? Because a lot of folks don't know. But y'all, this nonprofit thing is definitely a scam in many ways, in many instances. A lot of these organizations, they are just continuing to exist, even though they're not solving anything. They're not helping the thing that they actually were created to help. So can you give us just some tips on what to look for?
Yeah, you're in my head because I was thinking about it this morning, because it's also like personally heartbreaking, right? It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when in the midst of catastrophe, you're getting a dozen emails from people who don't even know the difference between Altadena and Pasadena, right? You know, it's heartbreaking when they're saying, you know, fight fascism by donating to us, and their us is the Democratic Party, right? That they were both Bowers and Cecily Gay, but especially Bowers, consulted with the Democratic Party before they came on and served as consultants for Black Lives Matter, right? And so what you should do, what I encourage people to do, is look at the organizations, and do you see the people who purport to be leaders actually doing work, right? I'm sure if Cecily Gay walked into Pasadena Church, nobody would say, of course you're here, right? I'm sure they wouldn't. Is it just them, right? If a good organization, and one of our elders who's a leader in Black Lives Matter Grassroots, Baba Akili, always talks about the difference between activism and organizing, right? Organizing is getting people to act in their own interest and on their own behalf. So if you look at their social media and it's one person or two people or three people posed on some red carpet, or, you know, they're reposting some highly produced video, then they're not doing the work. And so we want to make sure that we support people who are doing the work, not this nonprofit industrial complex that pays. And I actually do, I'm not opposed to people getting paid for their work. Like, I'm thinking about people like, you know, who organize in Movement for Black Lives. You can't tell me nothing about Mary Hooks. I love me some Mary Hooks, right?
Shout out to Mary.
Yeah. You know, but you gonna see Mary
in Atlanta,
yelling in the faces. Yeah. You gonna see Mary yell tomorrow when we do the anniversary of the murder of brother Tortuguita, or sibling Tortuguita, who was killed doing Stop Cop City work. Mary gonna be loud, right? If your people who say that they're doing the work of the people are not being loud, or not willing to yell, or not willing to disrupt, if they are Black faces on white supremacy, do not support those organizations, right? You keep raising it, or you've raised it, right? Like, the way in which they've been willing to weaponize Blackness against the masses of Black people is disgusting. And we have to, I think the distinction is, are they willing to sacrifice their own adjacency to power for the purposes of Black liberation? If they are, then they're the real deal.
Thank you so much, Dr. Melina. Truly, I really honor your commitment, your solidity, your conviction, and it's people like you that continue to, you know, chart a course for folks like me. And just really, it's always dope to be able to look and be like, no, there's real ones. There's real ones. You're not the only one. Because the goal of these other types of folks is to isolate you and to make you feel like you are alone in a fight. But as you are saying, and as you have demonstrated, of course you're here in the fight. So I would like to give you the stage to address the people in however fashion you wish. And
let me just say it's an honor and a blessing to be with you. And, you know, when I said who's in the streets, I see you in the streets. I don't just see you on your podcast or on your Instagram. I see you in the streets. Look, here's another measure too. If they're always made up, then they're not real. Right?
Facts.
Right. And so I really, really appreciate it. Look, in this moment, we're called to do this work, right? And I'm not just talking about the immediate. My mentor used to say, Dr. Michael Preston, used to say, don't be distracted by brush fires. There are brush fires that have to be put out, and we are literally putting out the fire now. But there's also a much, much larger fight, battle, struggle, war to be had. And the most dangerous thing is for us to pretend to be living in peace when we're really at war. This is the time that Black people have to organize. This is the time that Black people have to ask our allies, are you really down with us in this fight? And we have to do what's right. We have to be motivated by movement, engage with each other, bring whatever gifts you have to the movement, whether it be organizing, whether it be speaking, whether it be sorting clothes at these distribution centers or cleaning up, taking a broom. Whatever it is, we call you into movement. Black Lives Matter Grassroots is 39 chapters all around the country, and people can find that listing at blmgrassroots.org. Whether you organize with us or with some other formation, please just move, because war has been declared on Black people and they ramping it up. And so we don't want to be caught not fighting back. We got to fight back, and it's also a moment when we can vision and build towards the world that we want to live. So again, Sister Amanda, thank you so much for having me. It's a blessing and an honor to see you.
Same. Thank you so much. We had Nikki High on yesterday from Octavia's Bookshelf.
Yes.
So she was talking about just what's going on in Altadena and giving us some history on Altadena, and said that her bookstore has become an operation at this point in terms of providing mutual aid for the community. Of course.
Absolutely. Of course. Yeah.
Of course. So want to remind you guys, for Altadena Relief, you can go directly to the GoFundMe.com/BLMLA. Also, you can go to BLMGrassroots.org to donate to BLM Grassroots, and also follow at BLM Grassroots. And the bottom line, in terms of like when you see BLM messaging, does it have grassroots on it? Then it ain't the real thing. Okay. And that's basically your really, really quick definer. When you see BLM messaging anywhere, particularly that's asking for money, does it have grassroots attached to it? Because they have rescinded that name from the branding. And that's the way that you can determine whether it's the real folks or the shady folks. So thank you, Dr. Melina Abdullah, for giving us all another fight, another cause that we need to amplify. And we will
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye. You guys, man, what a day. So make sure you all go and follow. Also, I think it's time that we take a moment to, hey, show your love. Hey, show your love. Go to the GoFundMe. Your love. Ooh, show your love. Go to the GoFundMe. Get them on the GoFundMe, baby. Altadena Relief, baby. ALTADNA. GoFundMe, BLMLA. And while you're at it, why don't you head on over to Grassroots BLM, BLMGrassroots.org. Won't you hit the donate button? Hit the donate button. Hit the donate button. na, 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 na. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Man, I had a good time singing that. Also, I love when I have an epiphany in real time, which is exactly what Mary McSingleton brought up right here. Weaponizing their blackness against black people. Like, that's like a whole thing that I like. It's like the thing that you be having in the back of your head. You just never really put the words to it. Like, that's the words. That was the words I've been looking for, them words. And I found them. I found the words. Yes, I found the words. Go ahead and block. Exactly. Go ahead and block their Instagram. The Black Lives Matter Instagram. If you're watching on Instagram, make sure you come on over to YouTube. We still got a little bit more show. Shout out to everybody who's been here the whole time. Some of y'all really be rocking with me the whole time, and it warms my little only child heart. It really does. It warms my little only child heart. Want to remind you that a new episode of Small Doses Podcast comes out today. Remember, every Wednesday, Small Doses Podcast comes out. We have a new episode today. The episode today is Side Effects of Black Music. And, you know, one of the ways that I know that I've, quote unquote, made it has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with proximity to people who I respect, people who I think are really just dope. And one of those people is Layla Hathaway. And Layla Hathaway is the daughter of Donny Hathaway. And she is on Side Effects of Making Black Music this week. And I got to find where I put the file so that you all can watch it. Okay. Oh, it's right here. My iPad. Side Effects. Here it is. Boom. Yeah.
Get you a scat right now.
Yeah, hit us with a scat.
Listen, it is the crack of dawn. No, that's bad. That's important expression, though. You know what I mean? And you're welcome to the world. We taught you how to do that too. You know,
I feel so honored.
me as Velma scatting at the crack of dawn. No, Lord.
Just scatted on you for little old me.
I try.
Yo. Yo. So make sure you check out Side Effects of Black Music, Side Effects of Making Black Music with the incredible, the illustrious, the iconic Layla Hathaway, available now wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch the episode when you subscribe to Patreon. And so make sure that, you know, if that's something that you want to be a part of. You just saw that little clip. Let me tell you, that wig... there was a whole miscommunication with the timing and whatnot. And so she ended up, she was like, you know, I'm going to have to reschedule. And I was just like, we can't reschedule. We can't. Folks be like, not even her, but like teams be like thinking like podcasts are just like some casual thing that we can reschedule. No, this is a podcast. This is the production. And so she said, you know what? Let me throw on this wig for my girl. So shout out to Layla Hathaway for throwing on the wig for me. Man, this has been a fabulous day. I just feel so lucky to be able to have folks like David, folks like Dr. Melina, folks like Layla Hathaway, just willing to come on and take place in this space. And I cannot pay these people. People come on this show, people come in my spaces because they understand that I really am about community, and it is a community service to be, you know, sharing in this way. And the minute I can pay folks, I will. That's basically how it turns out. But thank you all for joining us as we get into the public seals announcement. PSA. So today's public sales announcement is related to something I've been seeing on these internets where folks really like to exert what they think is their intellectualism or what they think is their like brain superiority through shaming people who question the functionality of the government. So I see people being like, wow, $770, that's all Biden is giving to the California folks who have been harmed in the fire. And then you have folks who are like, just say you don't know how government money allocation works. Oh my God. So even if you do know how government money allocation works, $770 is a pittance, particularly in California. We also have to acknowledge that just because you know how government allocation of funds works, actually, if you know how allocation of government funds works, then you 100% understand that it is incredibly dysfunctional and inefficient. It is 100% slow, and it doesn't favor the people. When we see how quickly funds can be given to Israel, it should alert for you. Well, why is it always so difficult to disseminate funds for people during extreme times? Why would people not require extreme help during an extreme time? People also, I feel, don't seem to grasp what the role of government is. Because I see so often this question of, well, what do you expect them to do? Why do you think we have a government? I think many people think we have a government simply to make laws and to create punishment for those laws. However, that is only one minuscule role of the government. The government is supposed to, quote unquote, govern by hopefully creating the best life conditions for its constituency. That's what it's supposed to do. It is supposed to, through governance, create safety, create resources. That is what governance is supposed to do. Laws aren't supposed to be made unless they are necessary. Governance also involves management. And if you have people paying taxes, then there should be governance and management about how those taxes are allocated to best serve the people via best representing what is supposed to be the role of government. Now, when we see different types of government, what we're seeing is different value systems of how people consider the role of government to be. Capitalists believe the role of government to just create scenarios for people to make more money. But you and I all know that just making more money does not necessarily make for a better society. It actually makes for a worse society. Fascism is saying that governance is going to be for the sake of, quote unquote, keeping people safe. That is what the mindset of fascism is. When really what it is you rely on us. It's a completely codependent relationship that is actually parasitic. When we talk about socialism, the thought process is that governance is going to create a system where the social aspects for people allow them to exist at their best, at their individual best. That's what's supposed to happen. In my opinion, that's the best version. And when I see people on this internet so like cocksure and great, like they're just like real like, yeah, you just don't know what you're talking about. The government doesn't, what do you expect the government to do? I'm like, do you see how silly you sound? You sound indoctrinated by the daggone government. That's what you sound like. You sound like you have been convinced to literally ride for and support the dysfunction of the government versus asking yourself, if I know that it works this way and that I know that it's wrong, that it's not effective, then what can I do to be active in creating more efficacy? But they've rocked us to sleep and got you feeling proud to simply know how it works versus empowered to make it work better. Or at the very least, to challenge them to make it work better. And that, my friends, is my PSA. All right, y'all. That's the end of the day, man. That's the end of the day. Y'all had a good time. I hope you had a good time. I had a great time. Want to remind you that tomorrow you can check out the bonus question. We had a lot of calls, so thank you all for making sure that you picked up the I keep saying pick up the phone, but you didn't really pick up the phone. But you left a message on what do you bring to your community. So thank you for that. Also want to thank our guests, David Heath and Dr. Melina Abdullah. Also want to remind you that I also break up the show and we'll post specific clips. So, if you can share that with your peoples. This is a grassroots effort. The same way that we have said we need to be sharing with folks the truth about BLM Grassroots and its uniqueness is the same way that we need to be about sharing this space, which is a space of learning and elevation. I hope that you enjoyed that first segment about the Indigenous burns, the Indigenous cultural burn as a critical thinking segment. That's something that I want to do more often, where I read you an article and we break it down and do critical thinking around it. So always coming up with new stuff. On Friday, we have things I learned this week. And remember, next week is another week right here at Views from Amandaland. And next week, we have, who is joining us next week? Next week, we will start our first edition of our segment. The Black Around the World. That's it. Next week, we will start our first segment of Black Around the World. Black Around the World is a segment that I've created where I will interview a Black person, a Black American who has moved, expatriated to another country. Because I think it's just way too problematic that a lot of times people just feel like you can't live anywhere else. No. And I want to talk about the ways that they're living there and not being colonists. We also have DJ Bakawi next week, who is an incredible brother from the continent. I'm actually not sure what country he is from, but I learned so much from him on the internet, and so he's going to be right here. Watch Don't Watch is coming back soon. Watch Don't Watch is coming back on the 21st. Watch Don't Watch is coming back on the 21st. All right, so make sure to look out for that. Remember, we have our supers that I want to shout out. We had so many today. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Vanessa. Shout out to Present Pilgrimage. Shout out to Morel Copeland. Morel, you ain't been here for a minute. Welcome back. Shout out to Kimberly. Hey, girl. Shout out to CJ Edwards. I love this picture. Shout out to Chakra Guru, always popping in. Pantara Villarreal, who is mentally in Tokyo. Shout out to Megan Rolfe. We got Felicia Madison. Another Kimberly John. We got Leo Moon Rising. We got Nia L. We also got a Chakra Guru coming through. He said, Miss Seals, we are empowered by your will to do. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. That must have been in response to me talking about how much work I do for this show. Damaris Cruz, thank you. Lena S. Lauren. Listen to Lauren. She said, don't forget to like this live. Kweku O. Risha Verma. Shout out to Risha. Risha said, let me just make sure that I get y'all again. Mira, is there a fun setup for us to support you? And how do we categorize the bread? I think is that for me? I got to think about that. Let me talk to my financial advisor. Sarah Netter. We got Reagan Carruthers. We need to protect truth tellers like Amanda and Dr. Abdullah. Not too many real ones left out there. Appreciate you for that. Lorraine, always coming through. Mira, you'd like a pair of the earrings Dr. Melina was wearing? You got to go to Lamert or go to any African mart and you're going to get those earrings. So showing love to all of y'all for showing me love. Hey, Kim. And that's another show done, y'all. So you all have a very blessed, beautiful, fabulous day. And as always, I want to thank everybody for showing up and showing out and spending their first days of the week with me. I know that we've got a lot going on in our lives, and it can definitely be difficult to do that alone. And so I'm glad that we can be a place that you can do that with. All right. So let's get into it. Our 30 seconds of stillness.
30 seconds of stillness.
I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seals. Come on and join the Seal Squad. Views from Amandaland. Live 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Wednesday, with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seals TV.
Smart, funny, and